It's more nerve-wracking than when I used to stand up in the hall. Anyway, I think we'll go for a start. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 11 months since our last meeting in February 2020, when I had the pleasure of speaking to you about photographing historic buildings. This should be more than enough time for you to recover from that and be able to enjoy our first virtual meeting. Normally I would tell you about fire exits, but I think you probably know where they are better than I do, so I'm not going to do that. And I'd just like to mention a few rules that we need to abide to so that the evening runs smoothly. So please turn off your microphones and video cameras during the talk so that there will not be any visual or audio distractions. At the bottom of your screen, which will appear if you hover your mouse or pointer into the window in which Zoom is operating. And when you've done that, I will put those to Bill at the end of the talk, hopefully. So our speaker is Bill Franklin, known to many of you from visits to a very local site, Bedwell Hey. And it's that very site and his investigations there that he's going to talk to us about tonight. So without more ado, I'll ask Bill to share his screen and begin. Please, Bill.
Right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
It's shared, okay?
Yep.
Wrong program. Right. Hopefully now you can see my first slide.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good. Okay. Right. This is a first for me. I've not done a presentation on Zoom before. It is also quite scary, quite honestly, not knowing quite, sort of how things will pan out. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through our investigations at Bedwell Hey Farm between 2018 and 2020. And if I kick off, for those of you, I'm sure most of you know where Bedwell Hey Farm is, but for those of you that don't, this is little Thetford down here. This is the A10 going up to Ely just here, and Bedwell Hey Farm is just here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through mostly about our investigations in this field here, a little about what we've done here and here. Now, for those of you who don't know the farm particularly well, it's got a long history of having finds being found. I mean, there have been Bronze Age pole stave axe found. There's quernstones being found. Roman and Saxon pottery has been found there. The farm itself was one of the Bishop of Ely's farms up until the 16th century. And certainly we know it was confiscated. It was rented out in the 16th century, and a lot of it was enclosed because up until then it would have been mixed agriculture. And it's like a lot of Ely farms shifted to from a mixed agricultural husbandry to more of a dairy farm with lots more cattle, which for a long time preserved a lot of ridge and furrow there. There is still a bit around, and then it was lost to the bishop during the interregnum and never returned. Now, in 2017, I think it was, John Parish and I had a conversation over the phone, and I went out and saw John and offered to do some investigating. And so in 2018, we kicked off and started to do some things. Before I talk about that, just another look at the actual area that we're talking about. So the arrows here are showing the three areas I'm going to talk about, but I thought it'd be interesting for you to see the LiDAR draped across a topography map of the area, so you can actually see the topography rather than it just being a flat feature on a map. Down here we've got Grunty Fen. You've got these range of what passes decent sized hills, I suppose, for the fenland. And up here, these marks here are the old Witchford airfield. You've got the river here, of course, and Little Thetford's this bit here. And on this, I'll just also point out the fact that we've got the line of the old railway there. We've got these features here, which are furlong boundaries from the medieval field system. You can see some there. You can see some more up in here as well. So an area that's very rich in archaeology. The areas that I'm going to talk least about, in total this evening, are the upper fields. The farm is just down off the picture at the bottom here. And what we've done is we numbered every single field in Little Thetford and most in Ely as well. So we've got numbers for everything, hence these numbers here. So the parish boundary is actually along this line just here. And we've done, well, in fact, many of you actually came and did some field walking on this field here, and also in this one. Now, we've also done some geophysics here. We've done some geophysics in this field, which has some very nice ridge and furrow in it. Here, we intend to do some hopefully in the future, but you can see here the dispersal bays for the Lancasters. Just there, you can see a mark of another one there. This is probably medieval ridge and furrow. And then you've got what was the range where they tested their guns. I warn you, by the way, there is a very slight lag, and the lag will get slightly greater as I change from one slide to another, purely because the amount of memory that some of these pictures take up on my machine. Here's the usual typical sort of flat LiDAR. Again, I'm just showing you the farm here. And in terms of ridge and furrow, you can see some more here and more over here. So yeah, there's a bit of that around. Now, I said about Palstave axe, that was found somewhere up here. John's found a quernstone up here. There's an Anglo-Saxon cemetery was found when they're extending the airfield somewhere in this vicinity here. So yeah, just highlighting the point about the amount of archaeology. And this is the small field I said that we've taken a look at, which, as you can see, has got some very nice bit of ridge and furrow in it. Initially, we started off by doing some resistivity. We bought ourselves a resistivity machine and decided to have a go at it. Our results weren't that spectacular, but as we walked up and down the field, what we did actually spot was an awful lot of Roman pottery and one or two odd little bits of Saxon pottery. And therefore, we asked some of our colleagues from southern half of Cambridgeshire, a little group called Cambridge Archaeological Research, who have a magnetometer, to come and have a go and see if they could actually find us some results from the field. And this was our initial results at the end of 2018. And as you can see, this part of the field is absolutely stuffed full of all these lines which show up from the magnetometry. Now, initially when we saw this, we got very, very excited. Researchers are very good with their magnetometer. They're less good at explaining some of the things. And we were on a steep learning curve, so we came up with some, or at least I came up with some weird and wonderful ideas about what some of these might be. And what we now know is that these thicker lines here are by and large ditches, not walls as we thought they were. You've got these patches here, and we actually put a trench over here. We know that these are robbed out areas, and you can see another probable robbed out area there. We were rather hopeful that this might turn out to be a Roman bathhouse. Sadly, as you'll see shortly, just nothing of the case at all. But it did spur us on to actually look in much more detail at the field. The yellow line that the two yellow lines that I've marked out here is something that shows up on LiDAR. It looks like a big enclosure. Now, we think now that it may well be geological, but originally it looked a bit too clear to be geological, and we thought it might actually be the medieval enclosure, which gives Bedwell Hey its name, the farm name meaning enclosure in which hay is grown. But anyway, over the next year, we got research back in a couple more times, and you can see we've got some absolutely spectacular results from a much larger area of the field. This area here, by the way, drops off. There's a big sort of gully or slade comes down here. So this has gone right up to the edge of the slade, and this little bit here is where only resistivity has been done. And the red square is where nothing's been done. But because it's sort of an area where only part of a square was done. What we've done if we blocked it out in red, just to make it easier for when plotting everything together. Now I'll highlight on a couple of areas in this. The first of these is this feature here, and what you see is what appears to be a nice enclosure with some fairly large ditches, and this thing in the middle here is probably an Iron Age roundhouse. And we think we've got a couple of others. There's a possible roundhouse just here, and there's another one probably just here. Now, you'll notice though that while they may be from the Iron Age, we've got some later farming activity going on, and you can see these square enclosures, which in all probability Roman, and you've got the little droveways for moving cattle about just over here. The other area I'm particularly going to focus on in explaining this particular slide is this here. If you've ever read about banjo enclosures, that is a typical banjo enclosure. These enclosures here are for herding animals and getting them into an enclosure to be able to pick ones out for slaughter. For if it was sheep, it would probably be for some steel cutting the wool or whatever. But you can see we've got this large cluster of these ditches marking out these enclosures for moving animals about. And in fact, this one here, you can see it's like a set of pens. And what I would say is each of these grid squares is 30 meters square. So you can see that the banjo enclosure is probably getting on for 20 meters across at that point there. Also, we can see from this that these the Roman sort of more square features go further up the field just here. There was incidentally in Victorian times a quarry in this area here, and we think we've just caught the edge of the quarry there. And all of this speckled area over here is where the magnetometer hasn't liked the amount of metal that was parked up in this area here at the time when the survey was done. One of the things I am going to say about this is that although we've got this robbed out area here, there are some faint lines just here which come up and go round like that, and these appear to be a building. And one of the things, so we hopefully will look at in the future is this and see whether this is a building or not. But what we can say is that whether that's a building or not, there is a substantial building somewhere in the vicinity, and as you can see, it's quite a decent sized farmstead. I'm going to jump up to the top fields now, and these are our colour resistivity results from the top field. We haven't had any magnetometry done on them. We now have our own magnetometer, which we've had some training on, In fact, we did the training actually at Bedwell, but we haven't had a chance to use it at all yet. And that's one of our hopes for this coming year, is that if COVID will allow us, we like to be able to, one, get to use it, get proficient with it, and hopefully see what else is there. Now, with this particular field, as I said, the farm is down here. We did this across here, and initially we were looking for the Roman road, and we thought before we processed the results that we looked as if we got something going across at an angle. Well, once we processed the results, that turned out not to be the case. But we have got these red areas which are high resistance, suggesting building material and so forth in the ground there. We've got these slightly strange little sort of medium resistance areas here with red cores. I'm not sure quite what they are. And it looks likely that the Roman road probably follows the farm road up here, which are these two black lines. This one here got us quite excited because it looked as though we got these high resistance results there, and it looked like the end of a building. And I'll explain more about that shortly. This is the ridge and furrow field, and as you can see, we've got the ridge and furrow showing up as blue and green stripes. These are misreadings, by the way. They show up as red dots when we process the results. We've got some high resistance activity here, but it doesn't seem to form any patterns. So it could just be something from World War II, which has been dropped on the field, and it's gone down into it. Again, it's something that we may take a look at some point in the future. You yourselves came out at John's invitation to do some field walking early in 2019. And I mean, we ourselves haven't done very much in the way of field walking. Most of the field walking where we tended to pick up things has been when we've been using the geophysics equipment, because certainly if you're using resistivity, you go along, and every meter or so you put the probes into the ground, and when you do so you look down to make sure that you've got the resistivity beam in the right place, and lo and behold, you pick up anything that that's in front of you, so you know what you've got for each grid in terms of pottery. Now, that said, in the autumn of 2019, John came up the field after the lower half had been ploughed, and this is the field immediately to the west of the farm, and said there's a large red area, and it did indeed look like kiln debris. So what we did is we decided that we'd take a look at it. So we organised some field walking. One or two sherds of Roman pottery came up, and Janet Fairweather from yourselves came along, and lo and behold, turned virtually all of my colleagues green with envy by picking up a superb Bronze Age arrowhead. And some of my colleagues have been field walking for years and not picked up anything anywhere near as nice as that. And again, as I said, when we're doing resistivity, we do a bit, but when we did the field just north of the farm, we did send a couple of our members out to look further, at what else was in the field as we got the grid set out. Right, so I'm going to move on now and talk a little bit about the excavations that we carried out. Back in 2019, we started off with a small trench down here. This small trench came up with some ditches, and what I will do in a moment is I'll show you some trench plans which we put into our report, and they'll explain further about these. Then in July of 2019, we put in another trench here across this feature here. We didn't quite get it on the mark the first time round, and we had to extend the trench down here a bit. But then we got this what turned out to be a reasonable sized ditch. There's a strange looking feature here, which is sort of almost semicircular here with these what appear to be radiating arms from it. So we put a trench across there in July. And by that time, so we got this trench open and that one open. And to see what was happening in there. And then we put in August this very large trench. This is 22 meters long by 2.3 meters wide. So a long trench across there to see what partly what this feature was here, but also there's a couple of thin lines down here and this thing here which we wanted to know more about. That was it for 2019. We thought, until John said about the red stuff in the soil, and therefore we opened in September this year. Just about worked out what was going on when the heavens opened, and I don't think it stopped raining for a while. We certainly packed up everything in the wet. I know that. Then moving on to 2020. Once the initial lockdown it sort of eased a bit in May, we decided to take a look at that square-ended feature that appeared up in the top of this field here. Much to our disappointment, John took off the topsoil for us, and what we found was an awful lot of modern rubble. Which by John's reckoning was probably put there by his father. So that got closed down rather rapidly. And John said, would we like to take a look at an area where he keeps his hay bales, which hadn't been cultivated because the bioplant couldn't take the bales in time, and it was being used as a storage area for bales. So as a consequence, we put in a trench just there. Not as productive as we would have liked, but so in total, though, we've opened 7 holes across these areas of the sites, which I'm now going to describe in a bit more detail. For those of you who remember the summer of 2019, you will know it was very hot. And thankfully, John had got this wonderful gazebo, a portable gazebo, which he put up for us. And he also put down some very large hay bales just here, with ladders and scaffolding poles, not scaffolding poles, scaffolding planks, made another shelter over there. So we were able to work in these 2 trenches in a reasonable amount of comfort, given that how hot it was. And as you can see, John and a couple of colleagues here appear to be having a good laugh as they're excavating. The trenches themselves, so if I go to trench 1, this is the one we opened in May. We weren't totally sure what we'd find. This was done in the set aside, and it was really to see whether a bit of a scatter of pottery that was in the field, in the cropped area of the field, actually, sort of carried on through. Now, it did actually teach us an awful lot about the site and the geology. This area here, context 102, was a sand filled area, and it kept on going down and down and down, and we weren't sure what it was at first, but we think what we think it is. It's a sand filled pingu, which probably explains why further up the hill there was a quarry in Victorian times. I suspect they found a good quantity of sand and decided to dig it out. So the quality of the sand in this was very good. I mean, it's pure sand, no gravel in it at all, but no fines either. And you just kept on going down, and so we we called it a day at 0.5 metre on that. In the end of the trench, though, we caught a ditch, which is this context 104, going from east to west, which had bone, bits of Roman pottery and such like in it. And that had been cut by a later ditch, which had no finds in it at all. So we were really unsure as to the date of this ditch. We suspect now that it's probably Georgian or early Victorian, and I'll explain why a bit later. With one machine wants to move. Right, this is our trench, the second trench we put in. So this was almost just slightly north and west of that previous one. And this one, as you can see, this was put across the readings that we got off the magnetometry. And it was opened at, because John takes the top surface off with a bucket for us. It's 2.8 meters wide. And as you can see, this one was 5 meters in length. And we weren't sure whether we were going to find walls or whether it was going to be a ditch at this point. But in actual fact, what we did was, because by this time, because of the heat, the soil was drying out rapidly. We actually, after just going down a short way, narrowed the trench, and what we did find was the mortar footings from a wall just here. And in this whole area, we got some very nice amounts of Roman pottery, and including a very large, or 3/4 of the rim of a very large grey ware pot, and I mean very large. I said about the sand-filled pingu in trench 1. This was where that curved feature we wanted to look at was, and lo and behold, it turns out to be another one of these sand-filled features, which again had got nothing more in the way of finds other than what had just fallen into it, the top surface due to the action of ploughing in the past. Trench 3, this is the one where we had to extend the trench because of the fact we hadn't caught the feature that we expected to try and catch. What we actually got was about a small portion of it, and hence the reason we had to extend by just over 3 meters. And again, with this one, we got down to a level almost over most of the whole of the trench, where we were getting nothing in the way of archaeology, but we did have this ditch here. And I think it's fair to say that Simon spent an awful lot of time in this ditch, and from the results that we got by the end of the year from the magnetometry, this is a ditch from the Iron Age enclosure with a possible roundhouse in it, although we didn't get any Iron Age pottery out of it. We got Roman pottery, and we got plenty of animal bones. We know it was open for a long period of time because in this trench we got various bones, including watervole tooth, which showed it was been open for a long time. In the corner here, we got these two little features. This was a shallow gully, purpose completely unknown. The odd sherd of pottery in it, but nothing more. And this had some curious markings, and I think it's probably an auger hole for putting a fence post in. It had that sort of look about it with these grooves in it, which you'd expect to get from an auger. But otherwise, nothing in that at all. trench 4, this is our long trench. Now this started off at 20 meters long. And one of the things we were able to say fairly early on is that this area here had virtually nothing in it, down to about here. You've got these two features here, which were, these two were probably gullies caused by plough action. But other than that, nothing much in them, although one of them did have a piece of Iron Age pottery in it. But I think that's probably something that's been brought down the hill by the plough rather than you know, it being an Iron Age feature. I think these are probably medieval. We then sort of carried on in the middle here, rather than, you know, sort of trying to dig the whole of this. It was very clear that we'd gone straight down into the subsoil in here. So we then concentrated on this area here, and we started to get what appeared to be a large ditch initially, but then with the remains of wall footings in the bottom of it, and including some nice in situ pieces of walling just here, showing that that there had been a wall here, but this had been largely robbed out. And we could see from that we got a robbed out wall coming down here. Now, quite where it went in total, we don't know. We found a bit of it here, so we know it went there, and we know it went this way. But we got this robber trench going down here. We didn't find any remains of walling in here, so we suspect that they just dug a very wide trench and see what remains there were there. Now, within the fill of this, we had both Roman pottery and early to middle Saxon pottery. So we know that the robbing of this probably took place during the Saxon period. We also had this feature here, and this feature here we think was a post pad. So this cluster of stones here, possibly for a post to hold up the roof of a building. There was one nice piece of grey ware sitting on the top of it, but other than that, there was not much going on around it. I said that John had said about this red area in the southern part of the field, which then led us to go and investigate that. And what we found was this ditch. Now, having subsequently looked at the first series ordnance survey map, there was obviously a bit of a gully still there when the first series map was created. And what we think was we came down on this ditch, which probably is the ditch that continued up to the first trench we opened. And all we found from this was this ditch that was absolutely stuffed full of kiln debris, mostly sort of red burnt ash and other material, but had Georgian brick in it, mainly up in this sort of area here. So we think that somewhere locally there is probably a kiln, probably the same kiln that was used to create the bricks for John's large barn, which would have been sort of in the 18th century. Right, so let's move on to looking at some of the finds. These are the two pieces of Iron Age pottery that came out of one of those furrows I was saying about. They're quite unspectacular to look at, but then most Iron Age pottery tends to be. It's got lots of bits and pieces, you know, inclusions in it. It's obviously been heated up quite considerably during its lifetime, probably just a basic cooking pot. And so we got a piece of rim and a piece of the side. Sadly, neither of them join up to one another, which was disappointing. It would have been nice to have found a bit more. Now, in terms of the Roman pottery we found, we've got a right mix. Most of it, I will say, is from the 2nd through to the 4th centuries, and we've as I've got a fair old mix. This piece we think is Cambridge ware. There were some kilns, or a kiln found in Cambridge some years ago, producing a material very much like this. You can see the typical whiteness of the fired clay, which is the sort of thing you get locally when the local white clay is fired. So it has all the hallmarks of it. And of course, this was a slip decorated ware with this plain red slip on it. Not to be outdone, we also had this piece of Oxford ware, and this again is sort of 3rd, 4th centuries, and this was obviously quite a large jar of some kind, or pot, with this big thick rim on it, but this sort of buffy colour is classic for the Oxford wares. But out of all the pottery we got, the majority of it was greyware. Now these are 3 pieces of greyware rim, and you can see greyware varies from this almost black external sort of surface there, through to this much lighter colour, and everything you can think of in between. Greywares are found on Roman sites all across the country. They were probably made locally. Exactly where, I don't honestly know, but there may even been a kiln somewhere in the vicinity producing this material. But I say this was the majority of the Roman pottery that we found. We got some of the much more sort of rough shelly wares. This is fairly plain pottery. It's got all these bits of shell included in it to help bind the clay together, suggesting that the clay may not have been the best, but they're your basic cooking pots, in use throughout the whole of the Roman period. And in fact, if you compare that with the Iron Age pottery that I showed you a bit earlier, there's not a great deal of difference. Other than that, this has got a different sort of rim to it, and there's lots more in the way of these shell inclusions. Then we also found some better quality pottery. We got quite a few bits of mortaria, as in used for grinding, metal and pestle and mortar. You need to get me tongue twisted there. And all this is from the Lower Nene Valley, and we did find one piece which we were able to match the rim of from the Ecton kiln at Ecton, which is just north of Northampton. And we know there are some clear dates for the kilns there, and they did produce an awful lot of these mortaria. You've got these inclusions in it. This is silica slag, which they've obviously has been left over from other processes, which they used to include in it, and partly because that this silica slag was much harder than the clay, and therefore you get a much better action when you're grinding with it in your food in your mortaria. And then we got quite a lot of Upper Nene Valley wares. These are quite fine wares, and they come in a fair mix. I mean, they're made around the Caster area near Peterborough, and so you get these black slip coats on them, as in these ones here. Some of them quite nicely decorated, and then you get these brown slips ones here. And the reason I put this picture in is this is not something we found. This is a pot that is in the museum in Peterborough, but we actually got a portion a squarish portion of an identical material to this from one of the trenches. And it was just nice to be able to match the piece that we found with a known pottery type from the kilns around Castor. We also got this piece of slipware, slip decorated ware, which appears to show what we think is a bear's head. And we got two pieces of this particular material. As you will see, it doesn't have the whitish core to it that, or slightly greyish core that you get with the Nene Valley stuff. And we have not yet identified where this comes from. It's obviously come from some other part of the country, but quite where, don't know. I've shown it to a couple of people who really know their Roman pottery, and it's so far not been identified by them at all. One day we might find an equivalent for it. We can then tell where it came from. We've got pottery coming in from further afield than the Nene Valley, although only just in the case of Haddam, where this is material made by the Haddam, the kilns at Haddam, which there's two villages. There's Much Haddam and a Little Haddam, and this is classic pottery for those kilns there. This stuff was made from the 1st century onwards, but this is just about the only piece we found of that. And we got one or two pieces of Samian ware, which I suppose was the Wedgwood of the day. This particular one was from a very small vessel, and this was made in Gaul sometime between AD 40 and AD 80. And we know what Vim form it is, and it does fall within those two dates quite nicely. Whereas the Haddam one, we can only put a ballpark figure on it. We also got some, as I said earlier, within the robber trenches, we also got pieces of Saxon pottery. Here's a couple of pieces of Middle Saxon pottery. Saxon pottery, it doesn't look particularly great. It tends to be just generally black. Sometimes you get some decorated pieces, but not very often. Most of the stuff we got looked just like this. But our pottery expert was able to tell us that it is Middle Saxon, so between 600 and 800 AD. In terms of metalwork, there was a lot less metalwork found on the site than we would have expected for a Roman site, and that may be because we did get some bits of walling. It's probably walling associated with gardens or sort of the outside of the main buildings itself. We got a few nails, not a great number of nails. This, which appears to be part of a knife, it came within one of the robber trenches, so it could easily be Roman. It could be Saxon. No telling on that. And we got this small piece here, which we think is part of it's one end of a Roman stylus. So disappointing in terms of metal finds, and in fact, in terms of coins, there was only one coin found on the site. But what we do know is that they were doing some metalworking on the site. This is a Roman pot. And in fact, this is the base of the pot, and this piece is broken off from just there. What we got is we got the base of a quite wide flanged base pot, and inside it you can see the remains of where they've been making a copper alloy, and obviously they've heated the pot up with the metal in it, and unfortunately the pot is broken. And what you therefore get is the remains of the pot with the metal still stuck to it. We only found this one piece, but it does indicate we think that they're likely to be doing metalworking there. And we've got plenty of evidence of butchery. There's a couple of different jaw bones. I am no expert when it comes to animals, but what I can say is that we had evidence of butchery of pigs, deer, sheep and cattle. And we've got plenty of evidence of a building. This is part of a Roman roof tile. This ridge would have stuck up above the roof, and then there would have been a curved tile come across it like this to join two tiles together. And this is some box tile suggesting a heating system from the interior of a building. We've got a mixture of box tile, which would have carried warm air up through the building. And we've also got some other tile, which is just a wall surface tile keyed to put plaster on top of it. So in terms of the finds, as I said, we only had 2 pieces of Iron Age pottery. We had 837 pieces of tile, mostly roofing tile, and lots more tiny bits, which we couldn't say quite what they were, which filled it an absolutely huge bag. We had 831 sherds of Romano British pottery, mostly from the 2nd to the 4th centuries, of which 5% were fine wares, 18% cooking wares, and 73% sort of middle road pottery. 38 sherds of early Saxon pottery, 1 sherd of middle Saxon. The coin I said about a moment ago with a scenarius of Antonius Pius. The stylus and the knife blades and the nails I've mentioned, and 683 pieces of bone. So yeah, quite a lot going on. So we, good evidence of plenty of activity going on. Okay, so the site appears to show a continuous occupation from at least the Iron Age through to the present. We've got the Iron Age ditches, Banjo Enclosures, all seen on the magnetometry, which indicates cattle farming going on. We do believe there to be a significant amount of British building on the site. If it isn't the thin lines I described earlier on the magnetometry, then I'm not quite sure where it is at the moment. We've not found any evidence of a Saxon village, although we have enough pottery to suggest that there is one there. And what we have to remember, of course, is this is one of the potential sites for Cratton Doon, but I'm not sure that we're quite on it yet. So, okay, what do we want to look at in this year if we get a chance, or in over the next couple of years? Well, clearly we want to look at this possible building in here to see whether it is a building, because it just looks different. It looks as if it's a building set within a courtyard. Be nice to know whether that is the case or not. That's one of the things we'd like to do. And of course, all of this depends upon the cropping, what crops on the field, and when it comes off, and how quickly the next one goes on, and all those sorts of things. Because the last thing we want to do is to upset the routine of the farm. We want to do some magnetometry on this particular field here. That we think is it's quite important. To see what one does how much is there going on up there, if the road's going up alongside the field at this point here, and John has found some centurion, or there were some centurion button, or a centurion button found just here, so we know that something's going on up here, but quite what we don't know yet. It'd be nice to know what that is. And the other thing is to take a look up here, partly to see whether the Saxon cemetery, which was found when they were doing these dispersal bays here or here, to see whether they actually took all of it away. Does it still exist? You know, do they leave a lot behind? And given for those of you who walked on that field a couple of years ago will remember that field has some very unusual materials in it. Stuff that reminds me of the old gas, coal gas sort of plants, the slag that you get from those, and lots of metal slag. Plus we've got bits of metal from the firing range. So using a magnetometer on this is going to be pretty useless. We don't think that resistivity is going to be a great deal of help, although we'll give it a try. But we do have ground penetrating radar, so we'll give that a try on there. And if John's up for it, maybe a small excavation just down one side of the field, you know, a small hole just to see, you know, whether there is anything there or whether it's been completely all disturbed, you know, and hopefully learn as much as we can from a small hole there. And that is where I'm going to leave it, because I see I've gone over my time by about 10 minutes. So yes, over to you, Stephen.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. That was very interesting, and I remember walking up there and finding some interesting bits of pottery and other things those couple of years ago now, and I'm sure some other people do too. There's one question from somebody from Graham Barrett, who says, is it possible to determine where Akeman Street is?
Well, in one sense, yes, because John himself did an excavation on Akeman Street, further down below his farm, where it comes across that corner of Grunty Fen some years ago. So we know where it is south of the farm. The question is, where does it go north of the farm? Now, if you think about the history and geography of the area, we know it went up through Streatham because Streatham is the street ham. So in Saxon times, it was certainly there. We know it crossed Grunty Fen and just to the southeast of John's farm. The question is, where does it go beyond that? Now, if we take Speed's map shows it. And in fact, what's his name? The first survey, the first large surveys of the fens also show it going still there, going alongside the farm on roughly where the present farm road is between Bedwell Hey farm and New England farm. So based on that, I think there's probably somewhere under the present farm road or just to one side of it. So it might be in the set aside on either side. Don't know, but it should be possible to find it.
Okay, it's not something you're going to be actively looking for, though.
No, we hope to find it amongst other, you know, as we're looking for other things, because you'd expect them to be settlement activity going on either side of a road, and you know, so people selling things and those sorts of things. But so yeah, we might find some things.
Okay, I've got a couple. One is it's a site that's had a really long occupation. Why is that? Is it because it's a dry area that in the surrounding wetness? Or?
I think the simple answer is probably yes. It is an elevated site, so it's good for knowing, you know, you're up there high, you can see what's going on all around you. The soil is very good. It's quite a sandy soil, but it is good. So it's not going to, you know, it's not getting waterlogged or anything. Yeah, I mean, it is a good site for farming.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And of course, you've got the produce from Grunty Fen at the bottom of the hill. If you get a bit bored with bread, you go get yourself a duck to slap in between it.
Always useful, and I can see why people would stay there for a long time. The other one is you're hoping to do some more investigations in this year. any chance of our members helping you? Is that something you'd
Yes.
like?
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, we're very, very grateful to your members that came along on previous occasions, and yes, you're always welcome. I mean, we don't set out to do things and then just keep it to our group. We very much believe in participation, and if John's happens to be out walking in Wick and Fen again and finds another doctor or some other waif and stray that he says, do you want to come along and join the dig, then we welcome them.
All right, well, presumably you'll let us know. I know it's always a bit sort of touch and go as to when the weather's right and when the farm's right, etc. But we're reasonably flexible, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is once we know what's happening with COVID and we know, as to whether we're going to get a window to do anything, then I'll certainly let yourself and Simon and others know. And yeah, I mean, I say it can get publicised, and if people want to come along, then please do.
Okay. Well, there aren't any other questions. But so on behalf of the Society, I would like to thank you very much for speaking to us in this weird medium where you can't really see anybody, and it's where you're just sort of talking to yourself, but you managed to keep it quite fluent. So well done you. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And just to tell those who are still here that our next virtual speaker will be Dr. Richard Kelleher, and he's going to speak to us on Monday, the 15th of February, about coins in the late medieval countryside, the Rendlesham project. So I look forward to seeing you all again then, and hopefully the technology will work reasonably well as it has done tonight. So thank you, Bill, and thank you everybody else for attending. Thank you. Bye-bye.